Hello everyone, it is time to talk about blasters. And before we get into blasters as a whole right now, and the spot that they're in this patch, I want to talk about the main subject of today's video, and that's going to be normal blaster. So, normal blaster over here, it's been a bit of a recent topic. It's been winning a lot of area cups. It seemed to be really good, and I've been talking about it for a little bit. But before we get into where we are today, I think it's important to talk about some history around this weapon. So over here, I have the Incopedia page for Luna Blaster in Splatoon 1. And I just want to draw attention to all this stuff over here that talks about his blast radius size. If we go to Blaster, you'll notice that this page is basically identical. And that's because in Splatoon 1, both Luna Blaster and Normal Blaster had a radius of about 4.0. They were both the same size, and they were both incredibly similar weapons. When going into Splatoon 2, things changed quite a bit for these weapons. Blaster and Luna got eventually changed in different ways. In Splatoon 2, Blaster got made significantly faster at going into squid form, a buff that we'll get back to later. Luna, on the other hand, while it did get buffed to be a little bit faster later down the line, it also got some end lag shaved off. It didn't get as much turned away. In Splatoon 3, Blaster's end lag would get shaved off further, now being reduced by a total of 9 frames if we combine both the game's buffs. Luna Blaster, on the other hand, has returned to its old blast radius size from Splatoon 1, with the caveat that, obviously, if you're in squid form, your hitbox is smaller than it was in S1, so it's not totally identical, but Luna has this really big radius. And what I think is really interesting about these changes is that these weapons have been made far more distinct. Luna Blaster can swim around and shoot like this, but look at this. It's a little slow, you know? It's not great. But it is a lot better at shooting twice. Its fire rate is very fast, it has a bigger blast radius, and most importantly, its jump spread is quite low compared to normal Blaster. Blaster, on the other hand, has 10 degrees of jump RNG. It also doesn't fire as fast in rapid succession here compared to Luna. Luna a lot of times will want to shoot twice at once, but this Blaster instead takes advantage of its incredible mobility, feeling like a rapid blaster in close range almost, but with a 2-shot. However, when Blaster was originally given this buff, it was offset by a hitbox nerf. Whereas Luna Blaster got to recover to its old blast radius that it's at today, Blaster's got reduced to a size of 3.3, which at the time was the smallest blast radius in the game. Nowadays though, before 11.0, that blast radius size was not uncommon. It was shared by Range Blaster, Rapid Blaster, and Rapid Blaster Pro, making it quite common among other weapons. However, something changed recently with blasters, and that's the hitbox changes. To go over the numbers specifically here, Blaster's hitbox went from 3.3 to 3.47. Obviously, again, it's harder to hit squid form, but if you're attacking people in human form, you basically have your old S2 blast radius back. However, you're also even faster than back then. I talked about in this post the same kind of deal, that I felt like it gave these weapons a unique identity in terms of how they were buffed, and I do like that. However, as you can see by the last bit, I think that there was some overkill, and in fact I'll get to this as we talk about for the rest of the video, but to make a long story short, thanks for the reply image, Basil, I think that Blaster is top 1 right now. It's won multiple area cups. I believe Lobster has also agreed that it was better because they talked with Gray recently. I don't have the post on me, but I'm pretty sure they said the same thing. And just generally, it is a much easier weapon now because it has both the speed and the blast radius from before. And this is where I have a big balance problem with this weapon. I'm okay with Blaster being really, really fast. It is meant to be into short-range weapons primarily, and you're going to need mobility to deal with those. In addition to that, buffing its mobility further does differentiate it from Luna more, a weapon where it used to have overlap as we've just gone over. My problem, though, is the blast radius change. I do not like that this weapon's blast radius is now more lenient again. It's still not massive by any means, but paired with the speed, it creates a easier game plan than it should have been. The blast radius being small is what made up for that speed. The indirects were a little bit harder to land than most, and while it's still harder to land than most blasters, it's not hard enough to make up for the insane speed advantage. This weapon became a lot easier in this version in a way that I really don't like. And if any change was to happen from this, I think it's that its blast radius size should be reduced back to normal. A 3.3 is the same as it had pre-patch, being one of the smallest in the game, and it would be even harder to hit people in squid form than it was back then. That would be fair. But that also got me thinking, did any of the blasters need this radius increase? Now, I get everything got a hitbox change. And for blasters, I get it when it comes to the direct hitbox. Directs are hard to land, so those being scaled in the way that they have make a lot of sense. But the AoE, on the other hand? I don't know. It does feel great for weapons like Range Blaster and Small Rapid, but that's mostly because these weapons were over-nerfed before. In S2, Rapid had MPU to give it a little bit of its blast radius back, and Range Blaster, well, kinda had it toned back a little too much, at least if we're not gonna adjust it in other areas. So it makes sense there, but on Clash? This is just stupid. Doesn't make the weapon much better, and it definitely makes it more annoying than it used to be. I don't think it was necessary here. I'll defend it on Luna, because I think Luna's a little bit harder than people give it credit for, but still, its old blast radius felt like it was perfectly fine. I don't really think it would change too much on the weapon, especially given that nerfing Blaster down is kind of its main competition at this point, since S-Blast short range mode by now is not really something that's amazing. It's definitely played for more mid-range, so I don't think Luna really needs it either. Rapid Pro definitely doesn't need it. It should be a precise shot to some extent, given how powerful this weapon is. The ink efficiency nerf on it was a lot, but that's kind of another story. I don't think this really needed a larger blast radius. And finally, there's S-Blast. The short range one would definitely hurt even more than it already does, but I don't think it would be too bad. The long range mode is kind of similar. I feel like if they toned it back, it would be okay, but also, it's kind of fine. I think that S-Blast is probably the least egregious of these radius increases, because since the most recent patch, it kind of has smaller blast radiuses equal to its range. I know 3.5 on the short range mode doesn't seem small, but for this speed, it kind of is. I know it's not exactly 3.5. That said, I do think it's something that needs to be looked at. While Blaster is definitely the biggest offender of these radius changes, I think in general, the Blaster radius increase should be at least toned back a little bit. I'm okay if they gave them a little bit more than before, but as of right now, a lot of these feel unnecessary. And to be honest, if every Blaster hitbox change got totally reverted to where it was only the directs that got a larger hitbox, I think all of them would probably be fine, to be honest. So, that's something I'd like to see. But as for Blaster, yeah, I think this is a balancing problem. Buffing both the thing that's supposed to offset its speed and its speed at the same time was just not a good idea. I don't like the skill floor to ceiling ratio of this weapon, and it's something that I think S-Blast handled really well. The short range mode is kind of what made this weapon free before, and it's a much harder weapon to use while still being relatively strong due to how they changed it. Blaster, on the other hand, does have some skill expression. Trust me, there's a difference between people who are really good at this weapon and people who are picking it up recently, but it's definitely on a smaller scale. I feel like a lot of the skill expression came from the smaller blast radius and working around that, and personally, I feel that's something that needs to be brought back. The 2-frame buff on its own is already good enough to leave it in just a fine spot, so that's personally the adjustment I'd like to see. But that's just my thoughts. What do you guys think about the Blaster radius changes in V-Blaster right now? Is it too much? Let me know. I'll see y'all later.